our hearts, He lives in our hearts, He lives in our hearts. Only as far as the space from our hearts, He lives in our hearts, He lives in our hearts. We're never lost, He is always the light, always the light side, always the light. Never lost, He is always the light, always the light side, always the light. Soothing our souls with His avatar eyes, avatar eyes, sight, avatar eyes. Soothing our souls with His avatar eyes, avatar eyes, sight, avatar eyes. Soothing our souls with His avatar eyes, avatar eyes, sight, avatar eyes. Soothing our souls with His avatar eyes, avatar eyes, sight, avatar We're never away from the avatar eyes, sight, avatar eyes. We're only as far as the space from our hearts. He lives in our hearts, He lives in our hearts. We're never lost, He is always the light, always the light side, always the light. Soothing our souls with His avatar eyes, sight, avatar eyes. Soothing our souls with His avatar eyes, sight, avatar eyes. Never away from the avatar eyes, sight, avatar eyes.
With love and reverence, I offer my most humble salutations at the divine lotus feet of our dear Lord, Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Dear brothers and sisters, a loving Sairam to all of you. On behalf of Sri Sathya Sai International Organization, I welcome Brother Shashank Shah to this webinar. And I offer my gratitude to Swami for bringing dear Brother Shashank amongst the Canadian devotees here today. Dear Brother Shashank, today we are so honored to have a world-renowned motivational speaker and author amongst us. And I offer my humble and most heartfelt welcome to you. Your talks are always inspiring and so uplifting and very enlightening. And I find that each time I hear you speak, I yearn for more. You have a wonderful way of explaining the most complicated topics with such ease. And so once again, my humble thanks to you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge of Swami's teachings with us. Today, we are all eagerly awaiting for another session with you. And so without further delay, I would now like to request our National Devotional Coordinator, Sister Kamala, to do the formal introduction. Thank you once again. Jai Sai Ram.
Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. My humble pranams with gratitude at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan, Shri Satya Sai Baba. Dear elders, brothers and sisters, youth and children, a loving Sairam to you all. I wish you all a very happy 2021 and hope all of you are keeping healthy and happy by Swami's grace. It is wonderful to have you all join us today for the first of the webinars and talks that we are planning for this year. It gives me great pleasure to welcome our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Shashank Shah, who will be speaking to us on the topic of living for God is true devotion. This is a topic that I'm sure will be inspiring and will have a lot of take-home messages for all of us on how to live for God while living in this world. Brother Shashank will be speaking for an hour and 15 minutes, which will be followed by a 20-minute Q&A session. All the viewers are encouraged to post their questions in the chat section on the YouTube during the talk. Your questions will be collated by one of us to be asked during the Q&A session. Brother Shashank needs no introduction, as most of us have already heard many of his talks, but for the few who have not. Dr. Shashank Shah, by profession, is a stakeholder management strategist, management researcher, and a national best-selling business author in the areas of stakeholder management strategy, private sector development, corporate responsibility, and sustainability. His research focuses on the pivotal role of corporations in economic and social value creation through visionary leadership, stakeholder-centric decision-making, and inclusive business strategies. Brother Shashank hails from Mumbai. Having been born in a Sai family, he had his first darshan of Swami at the tender age of 2. Subsequently, he came to Swami as a young lad of 21 years after completing BCom from Mumbai University in 2002. He joined Swami's Institute to pursue MBA, for which he received the President of India Gold Medal from the Divine Hands in 2004, as well as the Governor's Gold Medal for standing first in Master of Philosophy program in 2006. On Bhagwan's guidance, he joined the PhD program in management. Thereafter, he pursued postdoctoral research and taught at the business school in Bhagwan's Institute from 2011 to 2014. Since then, Brother Shashank has been a visiting scholar at Harvard Business School, USA, and held joint appointments as a project director and fellow at Harvard University's South Asia Institute, USA. For a brief period, he was a visiting scholar at the Center for CSR, Copenhagen Business School, Denmark. He also served as editor-in-chief for the Postdoctoral Editors Association at the Harvard University. Most recently, Brother Shashank was listed among the global 200 most influential thought leaders to be followed in 2021 by People Hum, the award-winning Singapore-based human capital management company. Kudos to you, brother. Apart from various academic achievements, he was blessed to speak in the Divine Presence on 25 occasions. He has given over 200 talks at various conferences and events in India, USA, and other countries. He also led the publications division at Swami's Institute for 6 years. He initiated the compilation of over 30 books on Swami's discourses, conversations, and experiences for students. Since 2015, he works closely with the All India President of Sri Satya Sai organization on projects connected with social impact evaluation and publications on the Sai message and mission. Without further ado, brothers and sisters, please join me in giving a loving Canadian welcome to Brother Shashank. Over to you, Brother Shashank.
Om Shri Sai Ram. offering my loving pranams at Swami's Divine Lotus feet. Thank you to Sister Preeti, the National President of the Satsai International Organization, Canada. Thank you to Sister Kamala and her team for inviting me for this special webinar for devotees from Canada, all the way from the east to the west coast. It's one country, but spans almost 4 time zones. And I'm so happy that we've been able to accommodate devotees all from the east to the west within a particular session. And thanks to the team, core team, for facilitating that. It's an honor to address the Canadian devotees once again in a short span of about 2 months. I was invited by Sister Preeti to address devotees around birthday time, Swami's 95th birthday. And that time I had spoken on the theme of I'm not neither distant nor distinct from God. Today's theme is on living for God is true devotion. The former focused on jnana, and this one is going to focus on prema. And both of them are like the 2 wings which will help the bird, which is the individual soul, to soar high in the sky of infinity and reach our supreme destiny. So that's the core objective of these 2 themes. So let me begin with a story, with a personal story. And many of you may have heard this. I've shared this on several occasions, but I wish to share this here because this is connected with the core theme, which we're going to talk about today. And this story is from the time I was studying in Swami's University for my MBA program. We were in the final year of the MBA program, and it's usually a tradition at Prashantanilayam, at least while we were studying, that we offer some kind of a token of gratitude to Swami as a batch collectively. And for that, we had brainstormed as to what would be the best gift. What gift can we give Swami? And we realized that there was something unique we wanted to give, and that was Swami's robes. But those robes were supposed to be colored robes because during those years, this was in 2004, March, in the preceding 2 years, Swami had stopped wearing colored robes. He was predominantly wearing orange for all functions, including birthday, convocation, Janmashtami, Guru Purnima, the occasions when Swami wears white, maroon, and yellow, respectively. But that wasn't happening. So we wanted to indicate to Swami from our gift, a quote unquote gift, that Swami should wear colored robes. And for that reason, we started planning, and then finally we came to that conclusion, and then we got the robes staged and had a very nice pack, a gift pack. And along with that, we had a lot of letters of gratitude, which we had all written. And finally, the then warden, Professor Shiv Shankar Sai, and a few representatives from our batch went to Swami's residence. Swami was that time staying in Purnachandra auditorium, the residence above. And they went there, and they said what they had brought. So Swami accepted the letters of gratitude, but he said, I don't want robes. Tell the student, because usually Swami would ask, whenever something is gift wrapped, especially from the student side, Swami will ask, what is it? So they said, Swami, it is robes. Imagine giving robes to Swami, but that's the relationship between students and Swami. So Swami said, I don't want robes. Tell the boys, if they want robes, I will give them robes. That was the observation. And then the gifts were, that gift wrapped packet was sent back with the warden and the class representatives. And then when they brought the message back to the hostel, in our room, in C20, I remember the room number, which was on the 2nd floor, we were discussing as to why Swami did not accept our robe, etc. And then in the course of the conversation, I said, if Swami wants to give us robes, let him give robes. We will give it to our parents to be placed in our altar so that it can be venerated at Swami's presence there. So one of my roommates said, tomorrow evening when we go for darshan, you tell Swami that. So I said, what is the need to tell Swami during darshan time? And then I pointed at a picture of Swami, which is there in the room. In every room in Swami's hostel, there is a picture. Same is the case with the college. So I pointed at the picture and said, here is Swami's photograph. I'm looking at it and telling Swami, Swami, we all want robes. Please give us robes. We'll give it to our parents to be venerated in our altars. So the conversation ended there. The bell rang and we all went for dinner. After dinner, we usually have study hours in the hostel. And after that, we wind up for the day with night prayer. So the day concluded. The next day morning, when we were leaving for college, Swami's car was passing by the hostel, and he was going to the hospital, from the mandir to the hospital. But it slowed down near the hostel, and Swami stood near the hostel in the car. The car stood near the hostel, and then Swami called for the warden, and the warden rushed. And then Swami told the warden, tell all the boys to come in time to the mandir today. So then no questions asked, why should we come in time? What is the reason? It's a command. You just follow it. Implicit obedience is the first prerequisite in the relationship between the guru and his disciples. So we all obviously reached in time to the mandir, maybe before time. The entire hostel, all classes, including school, high secondary school. And when we reached mandir, what we saw were piles of robes in the veranda. There were robes and robes and robes, all of orange color in the veranda. And as we rushed there, we knew exactly what this was. And as we settled down in the third and the fourth blocks, Swami instructed some of the elders, Professor Anil Kumar, Professor U.S. Rao, and several other teachers who were there to distribute the robes to the students. And thereafter, for almost an hour, there was a robe distribution program. And the robes were given to all the students of the college, of the higher secondary school, especially 10th, 11th, and 12th classes, and to the staff members, and even to some of the old students who were present there. And after distribution was over, I still remember I was sitting in the 10th row or so, and Swami stood there, and there was this railing, and Swami stood there, and he was looking in my direction and smiling, because you remember I mentioned that the previous evening. So Swami looked at me and smiled, and then I folded both my hands and smiled back at Swami, and I nodded in gratitude. And the thing ended there. We went back to the hostel. There was a conversation there about imagine our joy, Swami giving robes to all of us. There are stories of how there have been wars over the robe of Jesus. So you can imagine what it is when each one of the disciples receives a robe of the master. And there in the conversation in the room that evening, one of my roommates said, this is a wonderful experience. You must share this when you get the next opportunity to speak in Swami's presence. And I said, of course, I will. And the conversation ended there. We had our end semester examinations that concluded. Most of us went to Vrindavan because it was a great opportunity to spend the vacation with Swami. And I still remember the day. It was 8th of April, 2004. And that particular day, I was late for bhajans. And we used to stay in the hostel. Those of you who visited Vrindavan know that the hostel is within the ashram campus. In fact, there's a fascinating story of how the hostel was constructed inside the ashram campus, which is not the case with any of the other ashrams of Swami. In fact, it was supposed to be next to the college building, but the students did not want to. That time they used to stay where the current foreign canteen is. So the students did not want to stay away from Swami. So when the plans were made for a new hostel to be built, which was near the college building on the other side of the ground, they all wrote to Swami and saying that we don't want to stay away from you. We want to stay very near to you. And Swami conceded. And then he gave a plan of constructing the hostel on top of the tank, which was there, the water tank, which was there inside the ashram premises. And so that hostel is a monument of love of Swami's students for Swami and his love for them. So we were staying in the hostel, and I remember I dashed out of the hostel, ran straight into the students' block, and I wanted to sit there in the last row before the door opens on the stage, because Swami would be coming in and sitting on the stage. And I did not want to be seen joining the students' block after Swami has taken his seat. Of course not. That's not accepted as per the students' discipline. And I did not want to miss the opportunity to sit there in the first block and have the darshan. So I somehow managed. I sat, and just as I sat, the door opened. Swami came in, and Swami sat down. I was perspiring. I wiped my sweat. Bhajans had begun. And I was singing bhajans, and I saw that Swami was repeatedly looking at me. And I was happy Swami is looking at me. We are all very happy when Swami looks at us. It's a sign of his grace, his love, his attention, which we all seek. But then Swami kept on looking at me during the bhajan session for a prolonged period of time. And all through that time, I was worried after a point in time that what is the reason that Swami is looking at me again and again? Because when Swami looks at devotees, they're very happy. But when Swami looks at students for prolonged periods of time, they are concerned, because that means that there is something they may have not done as per his expectations. And so they would start worrying about it. And the same was the case with me. My mind went back. It was kind of a self-audit as to what have I done right, what have I done wrong. So that's actually a very good practice in spirituality. Today is Mahatma Gandhi's martyrdom day. And he had recommended this practice as a part of our own spiritual progress. He used to call it self-audit. Every night before we go to sleep, we should spend some moments reflecting on what we've done well, what we've not done well, resolve not to repeat that which is not good, and resolve to continue to abide by that which is good. And in his memory today, I'd like to share that that's a very good practice. And I was indulging in that practice at that point in time, because Swami was looking at me continuously. And then the bhajans got over, and we were all sitting there because there was a likely chance for a Trai session. A Trai session means where students sit around Swami and Swami talks to the students. So we got the instructions from inside that Swami is given permission for Trai session. And then it's usually by token number, like we used to have in the old darshan days. So my line got the first token. So I landed up exactly in the fourth row from Swami's chula. Now you can imagine, from being worried as to what wrong I have done, I've landed in extreme close proximity of Swami inside Trai Vrindavan. It was a mixed feeling of joy and also of concern as to what is there in store. And I had written a letter. The previous week was my birthday, so I had written a letter to Swami. So as soon as Swami came and sat, I was holding my letter. Swami called me, accepted the letter, and then he started speaking to me. And then he said, he saw that I'd written that it's my birthday and all. So he said, it's your birthday. Why don't you share your thoughts with with all the students gathered here? So I stood up and I started speaking. And as I was speaking, my mind went back a month, where in the hostel, my roommate had said it would be a great experience to share when you get the next chance. So towards the end of the talk, I narrated how a prayer to Swami's picture in our room led to Swami responding to it in person the very next day, and almost 1,000 plus students and staff members getting a robe from Swami. And I finished that experience concluding that it's the same Swami, whether we pray to him in person or we pray to him in the picture, he responds, and we have to be careful. We also have to be grateful. So I concluded, and as I was sitting down, Swami said to the students sitting in the first row, I knew this boy will speak about the robe. And so I made arrangements for them even before I came down. So he sent Dr. Ravi Kumar, who is now the warden of the hostel, upstairs, and a few other teachers. And when they went there, they saw that there were already neatly piled robes outside Swami's room upstairs in Trai Vrindavan. And even before Swami had come down, he had decided to distribute the robes. But in the gap between his willing that he wants to give robe and the actual execution, I was selected as the humble instrument. I thought that I got late for bhajans and sat in the last row. I thought that Swami was repeatedly looking at me. I thought that my line got, my row got the first number. Imagine I could have got the last number and ended up in the last row. And there was no chance then, because Swami wasn't walking those days to the end to take a letter. I was the one who thought that I gave a letter to Swami and Swami saw it was my birthday, and so he made me talk. I thought that, oh, because I got a chance to talk, I spoke about the robe, and because of that, Swami gave the robe. Actually, Swami had already willed to give the robe, and I was used only as an instrument. And that is the core of the message in the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna had told Arjuna in the 11th chapter, the 33rd verse, Lord Krishna had told Arjuna, Mayai vaite nihatah purvam eva nimitta matram bhavasavya sachi. I have already willed that the lives of the Kauravas will be concluded in this war. But I want you, O Arjuna, to be my instrument. This is Krishna's message to Arjuna, that you be my instrument. That is one side and a very important side of the story. The other side of the story is, the one side of the story is that God is telling Arjuna to be his instrument. What is the other side of the story? The other side of the story is the willingness of Arjuna to be a good instrument. This was what Krishna had told him in the 11th chapter. But it took 7 more chapters before Arjuna could give his assurance to Krishna. Krishna gave Arjuna his assurance. Arjuna gave Krishna his assurance 7 chapters later. In the 18th chapter, in the last conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, Arjuna finally tells Krishna in the 73rd verse, he says, Nashto moha smritir labdva tat prasadan mayachyuta sitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava. O Lord, all my illusion has been shattered, and now I'm free from all doubts, and I shall now act according to your instructions. This was the assurance Arjuna gave to Krishna. And after that, there is no more conversation between Krishna and Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna takes the reins of Arjuna's chariot and the war begins. The rest of the Bhagavad Gita, the concluding verses, are observations by Sanjaya, Dhritarashtra, and others. If you go to the Bhagavad Gita, this is the last part of the actual conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. So when does the dialogue between God and devotee ends? When the devotee expresses his or her willingness to say that I will do your bidding. Once the devotee says that I will do your bidding, God takes upon the responsibility of guiding the individual devotee through this complex clash of warriors in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Kurukshetra battlefield. Krishna protected Arjuna from all those wayward arrows that were coming in from all the directions, all the missiles, all the powerful arrows and astras that were being sent out towards Arjuna. And he protected Arjuna. Why? Because Arjuna said, I will follow your bidding. The Bhagavad Gita is so symbolic. It's one of the only scriptures which is not written in the peace and calm of a forest or in the peace and calm of a palace. It is communicated on the battlefield. And the battlefield is symbolic of the battlefield which you and I face on every single day. And Arjuna there is symbolic of the individual. And Krishna there is symbolic of God. Now there is this beautiful mural which is there at the rear end of the Bhajan Hall in Prashantinilayam. In that mural, Krishna is seated in the charioteer space, Arjuna is seated behind, and there is this magnificent chariot. And I believe Swami had taken a lot of interest in the making of that particular mural. And he would even peep into late hours of the night and see how the painter is painting. I believe he had even given instructions about the type of mustache that Duryodhana or Bhishma had in that painting, the eye for detail that Swami had. But what is the symbolism of that particular chariot? That chariot is symbolic of the Ratha Prashna, or the example of the Ratha from the Kathopanishad. What does it symbolize? The Arjuna, or the person sitting in the chariot, symbolizes the jiva, or the individuals. The chariot symbolizes our human life. The 4 wheels symbolize the 4 objectives or the purusharthas of human life. The horses symbolize the senses. The reins which hold the horses symbolize the mind. And Krishna sitting there symbolizes an enlightened intellect. When the jiva, or the individual, hands over the reins of the mind which controls the senses to an enlightened intellect, which is symbolic of God and his divine wisdom and grace, that is when an individual can be able to achieve his ultimate spiritual destiny. That's what Sanjaya tells in the last verse. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdaraha, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. Where there is Arjuna, the dexterous warrior, and where there is Krishna, the most benevolent, compassionate Lord, their victory is bound to be there. There is no doubt about it. But that is not limited to Arjuna and Krishna in that battlefield. That's extended and applicable to all of us. Because we are that Arjuna sitting in this chariot, which has the 4 objectives and all the senses and the mind, which is the reins. But we need to hand over the reins to Krishna. And then only you will ever and say, Karishye Vachanam Tava, I will do your bidding. Only then this particular chariot and the indweller, the charioteer, the Jiva, will be able to reach his spiritual destiny. However, we need to be extremely clear that that is something which we need to take the initiative and tell. It is only when that happens will God say, yes, I will take over. But it has to be an absolute surrender. It cannot be conditional. And that's why if you would like to reflect further, Swami has given himself the name Sanatana Sarathi. While Krishna was a charioteer only for Partha or Arjuna, Swami has accepted that he will be the eternal charioteer for all of us who are willing to go by his bidding, by his message, by his guidance, so that he can take the reins of our life in his hands and help us achieve the ultimate. Are we willing to surrender our individual will and promise him that we will do his bidding like Arjuna did? Are we willing to perform our tasks without no expectations of the outcomes like Arjuna did during the battle of Kurukshetra? If yes, that is the highest sacrifice and that's the highest devotion. I think this is the introduction and the context in which I wanted to place today's theme. Living for God is true devotion. Now I'd segue to the next part of my talk, which is what is devotion? What is true devotion? What is bhakti? Why did I tell all of this? Because I think we need to understand what is true bhakti, what is true devotion. Our devotion, our understanding of devotion is very subjective. We usually presume devotion is some kind of a deal with God. This is a very beautiful Chinnakatha from Swami's collection of the student who was extremely scared of the mathematics paper. So he entered into a deal with God that if I clear my maths exams, I will make Chakra Pongal or a special sweet for you. He made that deal with God in the morning and went to write his exams. But while he was writing his examination, he realized that the paper was far easier than he expected. And as he was writing the paper, he started making a parallel cost sheet of what it would cost to make that particular Chakra Pongal sweet. And as he could solve each of the sums in that paper, he started reducing one item from the making of the Chakra Pongal sheet. Towards the end of the paper, when he had answered all the questions extremely well, he realized that none of the contents of making Chakra Pongal were required. Only water was sufficient, because that's what is mentioned in the Gita also. Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Only Toyam. I will take water and offer it to God in the altar. So he decided that he'll do that as the first thing when he goes back to his home. He went to his home very dedicatedly, took the glass of water from the kitchen, went to the altar, placed it there. And then his father was wondering what this guy is doing. And so he asked him, how was the examination? He said, it was great. So his father said, show me the question paper. So he said, okay, dad, I'll show you. He went inside, opened his bag. And when he looked up, he shouted, God has cheated me. So his father was wondering, where did all this come from? God cheating? What about the question paper? So when he came out, he told his father the whole story. And what happened in the course of excitement of preparing that cost sheet for making that Chakra Pongal, he had ended up giving that Chakra Pongal cost sheet to his teacher and brought his answer sheet home. So that's the kind of problems we face when we are so focused on this wheeling, dealing, deal with God. Oh, 101, 121, no, special day, $151. Oh, special pilgrimage. Oh, I'll put 20 grams of gold in the hundi. As if God cares for all of these things that we are going to give him. After all, who has created, whether it is the gold, whether it is the cash, whether it is water, whether this beautiful creation, he is the creator. Do we think he's going to be bothered about these few coins that we place before him and hence fulfill our wishes? This is what is called Swartha Bhakti, or selfish prayers for mundane benefits. Swami always, very often used to joke that people go to Tirupati a famous pilgrim center in Andhra Pradesh, which is worshipped, which is the number one Hindu temple in the world. And there they enter into these deals with God that if this particular lottery I win, then I will shave my hair in Tirupati. So Swami used to say that, do you think that Lord Venkateshwara is interested in your dirty hair? And for the sake of winning you, making you win a lottery, for the sake of your hair, he's going to help you? No, this is not what God is interested in. For example, offering coconuts to pass an exam. We see this happening all the time. Several cinemas make fun of these kinds of deals with God because we have come down to a level where we've made praying look like an act of begging. Why do we go to mandir? Not to pray. We go to mandir because we have a long list of demands which we are going to place before God. We go there in Canada, in Vancouver, in Toronto, in Ottawa, in any part of the country, in any part of the world. We go there and then we close our eyes. We go to the church, we close our eyes, and then we start pouring out a list of our demands and say, God, you know, you need to do this. You need to do that. Please do this because that's good for me. Please don't do that because that's not good for me. So in effect, we are giving advice to God as to what he should be doing for our own well-being, and with the presumption that we know better than him what is good for us. And that is the kind of prayers we make before God. Swami always used to say, why do you come to the wish-fulfilling tree, the Kalpavruksha, and ask for coffee powder? Don't come to the wish-fulfilling tree and ask for products which are available in the market. What is available in the world, you go and seek in the world. Ask from God that which only God can give. And do not use your opportunity with God to ask for mundane things. I remember very often Swami used to reflect in his discourses. He used to say, I'm still looking for a devotee. Vetakutunnanu. I'm still searching. Where is that one devotee who truly wants me and nothing else? Talking about true devotees, I'm reminded of Professor Kasturi, Swami's biographer and translator for almost 25 years. Professor Kasturi had one of the finest and closest access to Swami. He used to have an opportunity to go to Swami's room. He used to have opportunity to meet Swami almost 4 times a day, have several meals with him, travel with him wherever he went. But very few know that Professor Kasturi's personal life was quite in tatters. His wife was suffering from a severe disease for almost quarter century, because of which she was bedridden. His daughter had several family problems, and the grandchildren were not having the benefit of staying with both the parents at the same time. There are many details of this in the biography, an autobiography written by his daughter about their experiences with Swami. And yet, Professor Kasturi never ever once asked Swami anything for himself or his family. His wife's health, his daughter's problems, his grandchildren's upbringing, nothing. And many people used to say, you have so much access to Swami, why don't you ask him to solve or resolve some of your problems? He said, I have not come here to ask Swami for what I want. I have come here so that I can make myself available to Swami for what he wants to use me. See the difference in perspective of true devotion. True devotion is about what can I do for God because I belong to him. It is not about what God should do for me because he is beholden to me because I am offering some devotion to him. So he has no other role. So might as well he responds to my prayers, because otherwise I'll stop even praying to him and hence he will not have a devotee. So he better listen to me. That is not devotion. That is not the kind of attitude we need to have for God. We have to be available at his beck and call. We have to, if we believe in divinity having a form, having a certain set of attributes, and having a particular name which is dearest to us, then we also need to be aware of the fact that it is we who belong to him, and he is not the one who is supposed to be responding to us the way we think he should be. So this was all example of Swartha Bhakti. True Bhakti or true devotion is Parartha Bhakti, the one which is for para or for that which is beyond. Devotion for God, love for God. Devotion and love, Swami used to say, are synonyms. They mean the same. Love for God is devotion for God. Devotion and love to God are not meant for worldly benefits. Swami used to say, devotion and love are inseparable and interdependent. Devotion is the means to achieve salvation, and love is the expression of that devotion. If we see these wars of Ramayana and Mahabharata on cinema or documentaries or even in books, usually read or see that the warrior prays and there is a power of the mantra which comes into the arrow, and that helps the arrow reach its destination. In our spiritual journey, it is love. This is love for God, this devotion towards God, which will give power to all the self effort that we make in our spiritual journey and help us achieve this ultimate spiritual destination. And Swami used to say that constant and loving contemplation on God and an expression of love for Him, both internally and externally, is true devotion. Exhibitionistic devotion, that which is done to show, Swami used to pun on the words, we don't do social service, we do social service. We want to show others that we are doing service. Similarly, we do also social exhibitionistic devotion. We want to show others that we are great devotees, and we do a lot of things so that others are convinced about our devotion. Swami said that is not true devotion. True devotion should be free from selfishness of any kind. So what should true devotion look like? It is service to the Lord, service to His message, service to His mission. That's the highest expression of devotion as given by Swami. And that loving service to the divine confers the highest. So what is the end output of devotion? What is the end outcome of devotion? It is not some worldly benefit. In the Narada Bhakti Sutras, sage Narada, the finest of sages, who is also considered to be the son of Brahma, the creator, he says in the second verse, Yallabdhva puman siddho bhavati, amrito bhavati, tripto bhavati. What does that mean? Yallabdhva, having achieved that, puman, that, what? Supreme devotion. Once we achieve that supreme devotion, what happens? What is an outcome? How is it seen? One becomes perfect because of that devotion. One achieves an immortal status because of that devotion. One achieves supreme and permanent satisfaction as an outcome of that devotion. These are ways to measure whether we have progressed in our devotion or not, because true devotion confers all of this. If we are not experiencing this, means we have not progressed and made enough progress with respect to devotion. He says in the fourth verse, Yajñatva matto bhavati, stabdo bhavati, atma ramo bhavati. Having known that devotion, having known that jnatva, to have known, one becomes intoxicated with bliss. Having experienced that true devotion, one becomes intoxicated with bliss. What is the example which comes to my mind? Sri Ramakrishna Paramhamsa, and the very many occasions when he used to go into bliss in that love for Mother Kali. And there are so many pictures also when he is in that state of bliss. This is what is given in the Narada Bhakti Sutras. Matto bhavati, stabdho bhavati. One becomes silent. One does not express and elaborate on one's devotion. One is so overwhelmed with that devotion that one becomes silent. Atma ramo bhavati. One thereafter takes delight in abiding in the self. Atma rama, one's own divine self. That is the final outcome of what true devotion confers. So this is the destination that we need to achieve. This is the destination which the scriptures have placed before us. And what kind of bhakti or devotion we should have? There are two types of bhakti. Now I'll segue to the third part of my talk. What are the two types of bhakti? One is samanya bhakti. This is the normal bhakti which we indulge in. Rituals that we perform. We perform rituals with great enthusiasm. And the Indian calendar is designed in such a way that every month or every fortnight, there is some festival and there are some rituals associated with it. So we very conscientiously follow them. We make different offerings to our chosen deity, offer the deity in our puja room or altar. We sing his glory. We sing bhajans. We on occasions read his divine life and message. through Parayanam sessions and study circles, we visit temples on special occasions to admire the beautiful idol of God in various forms, whether marble or stone or jewels or whatever chosen form the artist has. We undertake pilgrimages to through taking arduous journeys, Vaishnav Devi and Kedarnath and Tirupati, all of these. Now in many of these places there are helicopter services or some kind of services which makes it easy. But the days of yore, people had to travel several days to reach the top. And so why? So that they can benefit from the noble vibrations. All of this comes under Samanya Bhakti, ordinary kind of devotion. The second kind of bhakti is Para Bhakti. That bhakti is not associated in the first kind of Samanya Bhakti. Why is it ordinary? Because it is to do with some kind of actions. It is external. It is outside us. Puja, Archana, reading, going to temple, doing Aarti, climbing top of the mountain. All of this is external to us. It is Samanya Bhakti. Para Bhakti is internal. It is focused on the Nivritti Marga, where one needs to give up one's negative qualities. And then what do we offer to God? In the external case, we offer flowers, fruits, dhupam, deepam, naivedyam, aarti, all of this. In the Para Bhakti, what do we offer to God? Swami says we offer our purest of emotions and virtues to please God within. That is Para Bhakti. That's a far more superior form of bhakti which Swami recommends. It is not that this versus that. I would say it is this and that, and eventually this getting subsumed in that. In fact, if one reads the biography of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and I'm quoting him because he's one of the finest contemporary examples of devotion. He said it's called the Gospel of Ramakrishna, and it was there in a college library. I had read it when I was pursuing my MBA, and I would encourage you to read as well. The very first sentence of the Gospel of Ramakrishna says, in that Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says, the day when listening to the names of Hari and Hara, which is Shiva and Vishnu or any chosen form of your deity, the day when listening to the names of Hari or Hara leads to an outburst of tears of joy, bliss, and longing from your eyes and from your heart, just the listening of the name, that day is the end on which other rituals like Sandhya Vandanam and others need not be performed. Which means that the objective of all these external rituals that we do, the discipline that we bring into our life, is to enable us to connect us with Him and to develop that love for Him and to make that love a very part of our existence and identity. When that happens, all of this is of no use. The finger is used to show the idol. So first you look at the finger, and through the finger you look at the idol. Once you have started looking at the idol, the finger is of no use. All our initial preparatory practices are like the finger. It is constantly showing us the direction in which we need to move. Once we have progressed in that direction, we don't need the finger direction anymore. We are concentrating directly on the idol. The idol in turn is only a small manifestation or expression of the supreme divinity. Once that idol is appreciated and the form is internalized in our heart, we no longer need that idol because the idol is imprinted in our heart. So our devotion is not limited to any temple, any pilgrimage. God within is always our constant companion. So that is Para Bhakti. There's a beautiful conversation between Sri Ramakrishna and his foremost disciple, Swami Vivekananda, on how we can get this kind of vision of divinity, and how Vivekananda, or then Narendranath Datta, could love God as naturally as Sri Ramakrishna did. And Ramakrishna used to share stories in the form of parables or something that he sees in front of him. So at that time, there was a glass of sugarcane juice before him. And there was this housefly which was hovering around that sugarcane juice. So he looked at that glass and asked Vivekananda, Naren, see this glass and this housefly is hovering around this. When will the housefly be able to taste the juice that is there in the glass? Naren says when it falls into the glass and tastes the juice. What will happen at that time? Ramakrishna says, that Ramakrishna asks, so what will happen at that time? So Vivekananda says, it will cease its existence. Ramakrishna says, yes, but it will achieve the supreme sweet taste of that sugarcane juice. In order that the fly experiences the sweetness of the sugarcane juice, it has to lose itself in the process. Similarly, parabhakti or supreme devotion is the process where we need to give up or lose our individual identity and merge ourselves with the love for God that we have within and without. That is the supreme spiritual message of the river merging into the ocean, where it is only when the river is willing to give up its original identity does it become one with the ocean. Till then it remains separate. When it becomes one with the ocean, it becomes part of the infinity. Till then, it has its own individual identity. That is the whole focus that we need to have if we want to have supreme devotion. Then the obvious question would be, oh, so then the rituals are not required. Should we give up all rituals? Because Samanya Bhakti is the ritual, so we should not do that. And Parabhakti or supreme devotion is the highest spirituality. So similar question was asked to Swami in the Mandir portico in one of the conversations, and this is mentioned in the Students with Sai Conversations book. It was the 18th of September in 1992. And there this devotee asked Swami, Swami, should we give up puja and all other acts of worship? So Swami said, to give some benefit, rituals must be accompanied by the practice of sacred truths. After all, what is real spirituality? Swami asked. It is not the rituals that you speak of. It is the killing of the animal qualities within and rediscovering the divinity within. And that can be achieved only through practice. Reading scriptures alone is not enough. And then Swami went on to say, in my opinion, all sacred texts, Ramayana, Bhagavatam, Bible, Quran, Guru Granth Sahib, all of these are Acharana Granthas. They are texts which have to be studied so that the truths highlighted in them can be practiced in daily life. What is the use of rituals alone, Swami said, and blind reading of these texts if one does not practice them? You have to practice. By merely saying, I want to go to Bangalore, I will not reach. I have to take the car or the bus, move ahead, and I will reach my destination. Same is the case with your spiritual journey, Swami said in that occasion. Talking about conversations with Swami, I'm reminded of another conversation, and Swami used to teach so much through these conversations. This would have answered a lot of queries connected with rituals and how important they are. They are no doubt important, provided they are done with the right context. If they are done as a means to get some benefit out of God, which is of a material kind, then they are just being misused or undermined, defiled even to an extent. Another conversation was with Swami in Trai Vrindavan. At the Trai Vrindavan was another beautiful place where, and that's why everybody used to look forward to spending the vacation with Swami in Trai Vrindavan. Because almost every day or every alternate day, Swami would give Trai sessions, which were only for students and staff of Swami's university and hospital. And Swami would spend almost an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours in the evening after bhajans. Students used to talk before Swami. They used to play some instrument. There used to be group singing of bhajans. Swami used to give discourse and Swami used to indulge in conversations. Oh, it was a treat. And this treat went on between 1984 and 2008. For 24 long years, almost a quarter century, quite without a parallel. Blessed batches of students and teachers who were witness to that. So in one of those conversations, the students were almost pestering Swami, pleading with Swami to bless them with a Trai session. So mischievously, Swami asked, why should I give you a Trai session? And then Swami used the opportunity. Swami used to use all these opportunities like a carrot dangled before us, so that finally, when we catch hold of the carrot, you get the stick. That's the job of a guru. He attracts you to the obvious things, but then he has his own agenda and he wants to confer the ultimate on you. Swami often used to say, I give you what you want so that ultimately you ask what I have come to give, liberation itself. Unfortunately, we limit ourselves only to ask what we want. We don't take the leap to ask him that which he has come to give, and then surrender to him and say, we are ready so that you can prepare us to achieve that end. So Swami continued in that conversation and said, you all show only part-time devotion. I want full-time devotion. If you want to get Trai session, you should have full-time devotion. Then Swami asked one of the teachers, he said, you've worked in a company, isn't it? He said, yes, Swami. The professor nodded his head. Swami said, what are the kind of employees that you have in the company? So the professor explained, he elaborated. He said, there are two kind of employees, Swami, part-time employees or temporary employees who usually work on a contract, and permanent employees who are full-time employees. Then in all innocence, Swami asked, imagine the kind of conversation Swami used to have with the students and staff. Swami asked them, what is the difference in the salary payment for these two categories of devotees? And the professor then went on to explain to Swami, the temporary employees are paid as per a contract. And it's a fixed money. There is no special things that they get because it's a pre-approved contract. The permanent employees, they get a basic salary. Then they also have additional benefits, some allowances, some increments, some bonuses, etc. And when the professor had completed his explanation, Swami said, yes, in the same way, for permanent devotees, I too shower constant grace. I too give special bonuses. And then Swami said, most importantly, I give dearness allowance. How sweet. Dearness allowance. He punned on the word dearness. And he said, not just that, I also give them pension for a lifetime, here and hereafter. But then Swami said, he regretted, but nobody seems interested to be a permanent devotee. How pregnant, what a pregnant message, full of insights for us to reflect on and recalibrate that we are all interested in part-time devotion. We want part-time devotion because that's convenient for us. It's a tick box. Thursdays and Sundays are for the center. A particular time of the day is for bhajans. A particular time of the day is for a particular spiritual activity. The rest of the time is my time. We still have this classification. This is my time. This is God's time. This is for my worldly things. This is for my spiritual progress. This is for my family. This is for my organization. Those compartmentalizations make us part-time devotees because we are giving God only part of our time, not all of our time. So what is a full-time devotion? What are the exemplars of Parabhakti? I've given an entire talk on Navavidha Bhakti. Couple of times I've elaborated in different parts of, one I had given in San Francisco, one I had given in Thane, in Mumbai, and one I had given to Odisha devotees. There is so much to learn from the lives of the 9 exemplars of Parabhakti in the Navavidha Bhakti Marg that Swami had given. I'm not going to elaborate, but I'm just mentioning about them so that you may want to read up, or I can share the talk with the organizers and they can share and circulate it with all the viewers. Excuse me. So the first one is Shravanam, and Swami is given Parikshit. King Parikshit is a great exemplar of Shravanam. Second is Kirtanam. Shravanam is listening. Kirtanam is singing the glory of God. Mirabai or Shukadev is an example of that kind of Kirtanam, supreme devotion just by singing. Mirabai's entire life was about singing Krishna's glory, and that alone conferred on her the ultimate. Vishnu Smaranam, chanting the name of the Lord. Prahalada, we know his life and his story, how that alone gave him the ultimate. Pada Sevanam, or servitude to the feet of the Lord. Lakshmi Devi, in every incarnation with Lord Mahavishnu, that's the one which confers her supreme grace. Archanam, offering. King Prithu, after which this whole planet is called Prithvi, is an exemplar of Archanam, or offering, because he did not just offer external things, he offered himself to God as a noble instrument in achieving the divine mission. Vandanam, or salutations. Akrura from the Bhagavatam, the great Yadava leader, he is an example as to how he was always going by Krishna's bidding and command. Dasyam, or servitude. Hanuman is an example from Ramayana. There's nothing to talk about Hanuman. I mean, there's nothing new for me to talk about Hanuman at this point in time. So much has been said, so much has been elaborated by Swami. And the most important indicator is that 65 feet tall Hanuman statue in Hillview Stadium, which is placed way above all other deities to show the supremacy of servitude to God. Sakyam or friendship, Arjuna or Sudama are great examples, and there are so many stories about their friendship with Krishna, unconditional friendship. Atmanivedanam or total surrender, Mahabali is an example from Bhagavatam, how he offered himself to Vamana when the 3 feet of land, 2 covered, one the earth and the other worlds. In the 3rd feet, he said, I offer myself to you. It's so symbolic. When everything that belongs to us supposedly is gone, are we willing to offer ourselves to God? And that's what Mahabali did. And that's why that's a supreme sense of offering. And that's Atmanivedanam. So these are examples of Parabhakti, because all of them considered themselves as belonging to God, as related to God. And so God reciprocated in the same way. There's a very nice story of Saint Teresa of the Catholic denomination. Several centuries ago, there's a story where she had got a vision, and in that vision, she saw the face of a man glowing. Obviously, it was Jesus, but she did not know who that being was. He had long flowing beard and long flowing hair, and that being asked Saint Teresa, "Who are you?" And Saint Teresa, she always had this habit of saying, "I am Teresa of Jesus." She always mentioned her identity. "I am Teresa of Jesus," she said. Then she asked that being, "Who are you?" And that being replied, he said, "I am Jesus of Teresa." How beautiful a story. When the devotee tells God, "I am Teresa of Jesus, I am so and so belonging to you," God says, "I am so and so belonging to you." That is the kind of reciprocation that comes forth from God. Hanuman, Swami always said, used to introduce himself as Dasoham Kausalendrasya. I am the servant of Rama. What is my identity? My physical identity is I am the servant of Rama. But how do we visualize ourselves if someone asks us, or even in our self-identity, how do we visualize ourselves? We'll say, "Oh, I'm a man or a woman." Or furthermore, they'll say, okay, first is gender. Then they'll say, "Oh, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a professor, I'm a space engineer," whatever. And then still more, then they'll say, "Oh, I'm a Canadian, I'm an American, I'm an Indian." All of these are the ways with which we identify ourselves. Can we identify ourselves as being a devotee of God as our primary identity, and all these other identities being temporary and apparent, which are an outcome of this primary identity of we being devotee of God? Or better still, can we look at ourselves as the way Swami addressed us, the appellation with which Swami addressed us, Prema Swarupalara, that we are an embodiment of his love, and that is our true identity. All other identities are apparently superimposed on that true identity of being an embodiment of his love. So that is the way in which this journey, this identity needs to be cultivated. And then we need to have this sense of relationship with God. This is, as I segue to the 4th part of the talk. What is the thing? Why is it necessary to have a relationship with God? Because from a full-time devotee, we need to progress as being a particular relationship holder with God. Why? There's a very nice example. This is given by Swami to the students. Swami said, when a maid servant typically is working in a house, what does she do? She does everything. And at the end of the day, she informs the lady of the house about the quantum of work that she has done, and she leaves promptly on the dot. In Mumbai, in India, in South India, in several parts of the country, there are jokes about maid servants of how they promptly leave at the dot. Whether they come late or early, they will leave exactly at the time they're supposed to leave. And all the time, their attention is on the clock. What's the time? What's the time? I have to leave. I have to leave. This is also true of most of us who are employees, who are working in a firm or a company or have our own this thing. We are all the time conscious of the time because we want to quickly leave. Not that much for entrepreneurs, but definitely for employees or managers and companies, because we are all the time driven by the fact that we need to deliver within a time, and then we will get a salary for the work we have done for that much period of time. In contrast, and Swami elaborated, the lady of the house, the homemaker, She never lists the quantum of work she does for her husband, for her in-laws, for her children, for the guests. Nor does the head of the family recount his contribution to the household. The head of the family doesn't put a list before the kids. I did this for you. I changed your diapers. I paid for your food. I paid for your travel. I paid for your shopping. That is his duty. I spent so much time with you over the weekend. That is his duty. The work she does is her duty. If we reflect, in fact, more than the husband, the wife who may be a full-time homemaker, it's a full-time 24 by 7, 7 days a week job. No holidays, no weekends, no break. But she does all that for her satisfaction because she considers taking care of her family as her duty. It gives her joy. It gives her happiness. She's in it for that joy and happiness. And Swami extrapolated, in our relationship with God, we should be like the homemaker. We should not be like the maid servant. Why? We should do everything for self-fulfillment and not as someone seeking a return in favor of the work done to God. If your loyalty is to the family, you are a servant of the family. If it is to God, you are servant of God. But do not pay heed to the wages he gives you. Do not bargain with him. Do not argue with him as to what you think you deserve and what he is giving or not giving. Swami said in that discourse, only hired laborers clamor for wages and declare that they deserve this much and they do not deserve this much. Graduate yourself to be a kinsman, a member of the family of God, a scion of God, one who has a relationship with God. Then it behoves him, God, to maintain your comfort, to take care of you under all situations and circumstances. This is an excerpt from Swami's discourse, not verbatim. Just try to convey the purport. During Guru Purnima in 1965, Swami had elaborated that you should not behave like an employee with God. So from a part-time employee, you become a full-time employee. That's the first transition. But then from a full-time employee, you need to become a member of the family of God, because that is when your relationship with him will not be bound by any externalities. It will be sahajam. It will be very natural. And that is why we need to extend our sense of belongingness, or what is called as mamakara, mine towards God. We say mine, my son, my father, my wife, my car, my home, for everything with relation to the world. But can we have that same kind of feeling towards God with the same intensity? All the examples of great devotees that have been shared in our scriptures and by Swami are full of this relationship with God. Bhishma from the Mahabharata was a great Shanta Bhakta, a one who was in equanimity at all times, devotion with equanimity. His relationship with Krishna was like that of an elderly member of the family, equanimous in all situations, but supremely devoted. Yashoda, the mother of Krishna, she was, her devotion was called Vatsalya Bhakti, affection. She looked at Krishna as her very own child. And that is the relationship which she wanted to be in all the time. Arjuna, Sakhya Bhakti, companionship, relationship of companionship. Yashoda, relationship of affection. Hanuman, Dasya Bhakti, relationship of servitude. I am your servant. You are my master. Gopikas, Anuraga Bhakti. It is a passionate form of devotion. And Radha, Madhura Bhakti, sweetness, Madhuryam. There is this Ashtakam or 8 verses written by Srimad Vallabhacharya, the Acharya who propounded the Shuddhadvaita form of Advaita, of Vedanta. He has written Madhura Ashtakam, where he says that Krishna is sweetness in all its forms, and that is sung several times in Prashant Lim during Krishnashtami. Radha's devotion is full of this sweetness. So these qualities of affection, of friendship, of servitude, of passion, of sweetness are all natural to human beings. We have all of this towards our worldly relationships, towards our properties, our belongingness. But when these get directed to God, when this friendship, when this servitude, when this passion, when this affection, when this sweetness gets diverted to God, the human emotion becomes supreme devotion. It's the same emotion, but the direction has been changed. In the Narada Bhakti Sutras, again, they are the supreme aphorisms on devotion. They are available online. I'd encourage you to read. And when you read them, you realize that so many things Swami has said are exactly from the Bhakti Sutras. Swami never used to give references because he used to speak in a flow. But when we look back, Swami has actually given us the most precious insights from the scriptures for our spiritual well-being. So in the 65th verse, the sage Narada says that having dedicated all our activities to God, one should then turn our desire, our anger, our pride, all the 6 vices that we have, Kama, Krodha, Moha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya, all these 6 vices should be turned towards God. Because when these extremely negative emotions turn towards God, you have desire only for God, you have anger or a sense of displeasure with God, as we've seen devotees expressing it only towards God. You have a sense of pride because you belong to God. You have a sense of jealousy because you are not getting from God for which another gopika or another monkey or another gopala is getting. All of this is diverted towards God, and that becomes, that human emotion or frailty becomes supreme devotion. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said that. He said you can experience supreme divinity in just 3 days. 3 days, provided you can direct towards God a combination of these 3 emotions. 1, the love of a mother for her newborn child. 2nd, the love of a miser towards his hard-earned wealth. And 3rd, the love of a newly wed couple for each other. If you can combine these human emotions and direct all of them towards God with the same intensity, in 3 days, you will experience supreme divinity. Swami always used to say, win love through love. Win love through love. Win God with your own devotion. That is the message. But Swami used to say, for that you have to direct your love in that direction. When your love is directed towards the world, it becomes raga or attachment. Any form of love for the worldly things will bind you to it. Relationships, property, wealth, position, power, all of this is a love towards each of these. What does it do? It binds us to that particular thing. And when we don't get that, it leads to sorrow. Sorrow leads to anger. Anger leads to jealousy. And you go down the steps all the way towards your patanam or your annihilation. So that is why the beginning is attachment. But when you love, when you change the direction of that love towards God, it becomes bhakti, adoration, devotion. This such an important concept Swami had shared with thousands of businessmen at a meeting organized by the Indian Merchants Chamber in Bombay way back on the 14th of May 1984 at the Cricket Club of India, the one which houses the Brabant Stadium. And there Swami said, the heart is like a lock and the mind is the key. If you turn the key to the right, you open the heart to God. If you turn the key to the left, you turn it towards the attachment to the worldly things and it gets closed, you get bound. It is the same lock and it is the same key. The direction in which you channelize your emotions will either bind you or liberate you. That's why the scriptures say, Mana evam manushyanam karanam bandhamokshayo. It is the mind of the human being that is responsible for both bondage and liberation, because it is the same key. You channelize, you turn it in one direction, you'll be liberated. When your heart is turned Godwards and everything is done in a God-centric way, you're liberated. But when your heart is turned worldly way and you are tied to the world and all its limitations, then you are bound. That is the bondage, which is what we all are complaining about. So what was the solution? Swami said, it is the same love. You should channelize the direction, the love in the direction of God, and that will determine your ultimate destination. I'll now come to the last part of today's presentation, which is on the first part of the theme, living with God, living for God is true devotion. All this while I have described what is true devotion, what is devotion, What are the kinds of devotion? What are the types of devotion? What is devotion? What is not devotion? What is our kind of devotion? What is the right kind of devotion? All those things have been covered. Now we go to the first part, which is living for God is true devotion. In fact, Vedanta and even the Bhagavad Gita. So these are the three important texts which form the core of Sanatana Dharma, which is called Prasthanatraya. The 10 major Upanishads, which were on which Sri Adi Shankaracharya had written commentaries on. Even Swami has written commentaries on the same 10 Upanishads in the Sutra Vahini text. The Brahma Sutras, which is the analytical aphorisms on the supreme reality, which was written by sage Badrayana, who is also considered to be the same as sage Vyas, and the Bhagavad Gita, which is a part of the Mahabharata. This is Prasthanatraya. So Swami has written commentary on the 10 Upanishads in Upanishad Vahini, on the Brahma Sutras in Sutra Vahini, and about the Gita in the Gita Vahini. These three scriptures form the core of the message of Sanatana Dharma, which is bequeathed to us for the last 5,000 years and more. Last 5,000 years, it has been in some form of I mean, it was earlier word of mouth, and then it came into written texts on different kinds and mediums of wood and paper, etc. And now, of course, we have them as books. But what is the core message given in each of them, especially the Bhagavad Gita, are the three paths: the path of action, the path of devotion, and the path of wisdom. Karma Marga, Bhakti Marga, Jnana Marga. Swami has simplified the three in 3 sentences in English, and I'll share them with you. And we are dealing with one of them. So for Karma Marga, or path of action, Swami said, living with God is true education as to how you should live your life, how you should indulge in karma. When you live with God, you can get that education. Living for God is true devotion, Bhakti Marga, path of devotion. And living in God is true spirituality, Jnana Marga, path of wisdom. So living with God is true education, Karma Marga, path of action. Living for God is true devotion, Bhakti Marga, path of devotion. And living in God is true spirituality, Jnana Marga, path of wisdom. Living in God is true spirituality. I had given a talk in this theme to devotees from Japan and Hong Kong a couple of months back. Today I'm having an opportunity to talk about living for God is true devotion with devotees from Canada. And next month I'm addressing devotees from Australia on the theme of living with God is true education, the path of action, or Karma Marga. So effectively, I've also immensely benefited by reflecting on the message that Swami and the scriptures have given on these 3 very vital aspects of our spiritual progress. So now I come to the last part. What is the meaning of living for God? What is the meaning of living for God? Often living for God, we presume, is going to the forest or renouncing the world. That's why the word God or any of these things creates a sense of fear in people, because they think that, oh, now my son or my husband or my brother will leave the world and go and live in the forest. But all our scriptures, many of them, have been focused on life here in this world, here and now. The conversation between Ashtavakra and Janaka, the sage Ashtavakra, brilliant sage, and Ashtavakra, because the 8 parts of his body were deformed, and there's a story to that. But his conversation with Janaka, who was a king, is a classic treatise on what the highest spirituality is all about. Janaka was not a renunciant, he was a king, but he was a Rajarishi. He was a king outside for discharging all his duties through the path of Dharma, but he was a renunciant within, because it was that renunciant feeling from within that gave him the capacity to rule over his kingdom with righteousness. You take the example of Krishna and Arjuna, as I shared. It was not given in some corner of a cozy ashram or under a very peaceful tree. It was given on the battlefield. And that's why Swami had once said that the Bhagavad Gita is called Gita, and it is great because it has a great significance, because the word Gita means song. Bhagavad Gita means song celestial, song divine, song of God. Only God is capable of singing song on a battlefield where there is terror, violence, uncertainty, fear, all these emotions are at their acme, here is God singing a song because he's unperturbed, unaffected by all these negative emotions. That is the very core message of Bhagavad Gita in its name itself, that we have to have that song celestial on our lips and fight this battle in this world, fight all the diverse situations that come before us with the equanimity within and the joy without. Because after all, life is a game. Play it, Swami said. So, what is the meaning of living for God? In the Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 8, verse 7, Krishna says this, and Swami had repeated this so many times. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha. Sarveshu at all time, Sarveshu with everybody, Kaleshu at all times, at all places and at all times. Mam anusmara yudhyacha. Think of me, Mam, me, anusmara, think, yudhyacha. Think of me and fight your battle. Which means be a good instrument. Think of me as an instrument, as my instrument, and fight your battles of life and living. An instrument does not have a will of its own. Swami very often said, be like the flute. The flute does not have anything, it's hollow. There are those 7, 5, 7, 9 holes in the flute, which is in a way symbolic of the human body, which has 9 holes. But when the flute does not, it's hollow, it does not have a will of its own, becomes a befitting instrument, and God takes that flute close to his lips and blows a melodious tune out of it. He plays the flute, and that flute is immortalized because of its tune, because the flute did not have a will of its own. It was willing to play the tune which God wanted to play through it. That is what living for God means. We need to be a befitting instrument which does not have a will of its own. We need to be doing things which God wants us to do. I shall do your bidding. Karishye vachanam tava. I described that earlier. Second part, what does living for God mean? In the second chapter in Bhagavad Gita, 50th verse, Lord Krishna says, Yoga karmasu kaushalam. True yoga or true spirituality is excellence in action. Spirituality does not mean that we behave in unprofessional ways. We have a shabby outlook, we have ungroomed faces, unkempt hair, unmanaged clothes. No. If you look at Prashant Nilayam, both on the men and women's side, Swami was extremely particular about personal grooming, dressing, hygiene, etc. Because if a person wants to progress in the spiritual path, he needs to be perfect even in the external scheme of things, because this requires far less discipline than the inner discipline that is required. If you are not able to maintain this external discipline, then the internal discipline is going to be a much taller order. So, yoga karmasu kaushalam. Do every act to the best of your capabilities. Be the best teacher. Be the best lawyer. Be the best doctor. Be the best homemaker. But remember, while doing those roles, that your student, your client, your customer, your patient, and your family member is an embodiment of divinity, and that you are serving that divinity through that student, through that client, through that patient, through that family member. That does not mean that you don't charge them as part of your profession, but that means that the intention or feeling with which you do is that which you would have towards God while you discharge your worldly duties. There's a very nice experience in the interview room when the second batch of students of the MBA program were leaving the university. Swami was giving them an interview in the last month of their stay there. And there they were expressing their concern, and some of them were even crying that how will they experience Swami's presence in the world outside? Because in Prashant Nilayam, our life is truly God-centered. Everything happens with Swami as the center of our lives. So how will we be able to maintain that outside? So what Swami did, he did not give them a very hi-fi philosophy. He materialized a photo for all of them, about 25 of them, small photos. It's available. I can share it maybe towards the end of the session. If time permits, I can share it. He materialized a photo of Swami talking to himself So that photo is such that in one part of the photo, Swami is talking, and in the other part of the photo, Swami is only listening. Swami is talking, Swami is only listening. Swami materialized that photo, gave to all the students, and said, when you go outside, keep this photo always imprinted in your memory, and remember that it is Swami who is speaking through you. It is Swami who is listening in the other person. It is Swami who is acting through you. It is Swami who is receiving that other person. Everything is Swami. Everything is your form, chosen form of God. There is nobody else except God in all these diverse names and forms. That is how excellence in action is a pathway to living for God in true devotion. And thirdly, what does living for God mean? Swami used to use this phrase very often. Sarva karma bhagavad prityartham. Do everything to make God happy. Everything that we do should be to make God happy. And that's a question we need to ask ourselves first. Is everything that we are doing to make God happy? Or parts of it are to make God happy and parts of it are to make ourselves happy? And even to say that yes, parts of it are to make ourselves happy because we are still not capable of doing everything to make God happy, then are we conscious of that fact and say, no, we want to give this up and we want to gradually move towards doing everything that will make God happy? That awareness is very important. So living for God means do everything to make God happy. How? What will that lead to? First, the benefit, true devotion. Living for God is true devotion. First, you will think of God before doing everything. If you want to do everything to make God happy, you will think of God before doing everything. The question which we should ask ourselves is, how will I act if God was present here? If God is present here, how will I act? The fact is that He's always present. He's omnipresent. How will I act if He's present here? If that question we ask ourselves, then automatically we will behave in a way that will make Him happy. The example of my robe experience, where I said to the photograph, and he heard and he acted on it. That's true for everything that we say or do. Are we conscious of that? That's the first thing. It will make us conscious of the fact that how will God, how will we act if God is here? We'll think of God before doing everything. Second, we will not do anything for our satisfaction, but for His satisfaction. Because you want to make Him happy. I may not be happy. My mind, my desires may not be satisfied, but He will be happy. That also gives us a reprieve from karma, because karma occurs when there is attachment to the outcome. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about nishkama karma. You do actions, you indulge in actions without any expectations of the results. Swami spoke of pavitra karma, next level. You may not always be able to not have any expectations, but pavitra karma means you do things in a way that God will be happy. Then your actions will become sacred, pious, pavitra. So you will not do anything for your satisfaction, but for His satisfaction. And third and final benefit is you will not indulge in mean actions. You will lead a sattvic life, because sarva karma bhagavad prityartham. You are doing everything to make God happy. What will that lead to? It will lead to bhava shuddhi, or purity of intentions, because the intention behind the action is most important. That is the true context of karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, you have right only over karma, not over outcomes. Then why should I worry about outcomes? I will only forgo the outcomes. No. What is important is I need to have the right intentions behind the action, because that is what is in my control. The intention with which I am doing these actions is what is in my control. So when you do sarva karma bhagavad prityartham and you do not indulge in mean activities, you have purity of intentions. And secondly, you achieve the mission statement of life. What is the mission statement of life? The mission statement of life is you are born so as not to be born again. You are not living a life to eat, sleep, and make merry. You are living a life so that you do not have to come back again. For during the COVID, the initial days of COVID, or the initial months of, even now, people are so much worried. Worried about what? That they may die, the fear of death. But Swami often says, you do not have to have fear of death. The fact that you are born, you will die one day. So there is no need to fear death. Like he quoted Jesus, death is a change of dress of life. But what you should fear is birth. You should be fearing birth, because if you are born, you will die. If you do not take care of the fact that you live a life in such a way that you are not born again, you will be born again. So let every action, every thought, every word, every deed be such that you are not born again. At least that intention and intensity should be a priority. Then it is worth even fearing life, because you're living this life not for sense pleasure, not for enjoyment, not for worldly success, all of which is going to be left behind, whether you like it or not. I have seen both my maternal grandfather and paternal grandmother dying right before my eyes. 30 seconds it took before they had to leave behind all their wealth, all their home, all their belongings, and leave, and the body was carried out of the house. And in case of my grandfather, 3 days, and in case of my grandmother, 6 hours, when they had to leave behind their relationships and everybody, because the body was offered to the fire. What went with them was that transformed self on which they would have worked while they were in that particular body. So that is what Sarva Karma Bhagavad Prityartham will help us achieve in living for God. So I'll conclude by saying that for Sai devotees, living for God is true devotion would mean all of the above, and plus, a very important plus, contribute to one's best capability to the divine mission, which is progressing in a phenomenal way through the Satsai International Organization, and of course the Satsai Organization India, which is giving an opportunity to 1 million active workers in India and across 125 countries of the world. There are nearly 6,000 Sai centers in India and another 2,000 plus in 125 countries of the world to serve the society. If we want to live for God and consider that as true devotion to Him, we need to do all of that I spoke, plus contribute to this phenomenal divine mission that we have been bequeathed with, and make our lives truly meaningful and a humble, noble offering at the divine lotus feet. With that, I conclude. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, Brother Shashank, that was an amazing talk. Thank you so much. We will now go into questions and answers. In your talk, you mentioned Arjuna and Hanuman as examples of total surrender. So is living with God, living for God, the same as total surrender? And what is total surrender?
Yes, I think this whole concept of surrender needs to be elaborated a bit. In fact, in 1947, when Swami wrote that letter to his brother, Seshamaraju, he defined what devotion is. And while he defined devotion, he did not talk about devotion. That letter is available. You must read it up. Swami defined devotion through surrender. He said, those who are devoted to me should take pleasure and pain, defeat and victory, success and failure with equanimity. That is a definition of a true devotee in my scheme of things. That's what Swami has said in that letter in 1947. So surrender is accepting the will of God as the final one. Our Swami had joked once in the summer course in 1990. He said relationship with God cannot be like a shareholder where you and God are partners. I will invest, God also will invest, and then we'll share the proceeds. It's not that. There is only one will, which is His will, because His will is the best will. He knows what's good for you. He knows what's good for everybody. You have to surrender and subsume your will in His will. That's why Sri Ramanujacharya, the foremost proponent of Vishishta Advaita, the qualified non-dualism school of Vedanta, had put bhakti and prapatti, devotion and surrender, as the prerequisites in the ultimate spiritual emancipation. Devotion and surrender are both equally important. But the problem is that today our surrender and the practice of it is very funny. It's like this: we are going in a train, and there is this joke. A man was going in the train, and he was carrying his bag on his head while he was sitting on his seat. So the people around him were saying that, why are you carrying this bag on your head? He said, no, because the ticket is for me. I have not paid for the bag. So I am carrying the bag on my head. So just like you are laughing, and I'm sure all of the others are laughing, we are doing the same thing. We are carrying our worries, our problems, our tensions on our head. Someone had asked, what is the mind? Mind is nothing but a bundle of desires. Where is the mind? There is no separate organ called the mind. There is a brain. There is a head. There is cerebrum, cerebellum. There is brain. All of this. Where is the mind? Mind is not an organ. Mind is not a place. Mind is a bundle of desires. And all of these desires and worries we carry on our head, and we are sitting in this train. And just like the joke of that man, we have surrendered to God. We say, I've surrendered to you. But we carry all these burdens on our head. What will happen to my daughter's marriage? What will happen to my promotion? What will happen to my son's education? When will I pay the EMI of my house, of my insurance policy, so on and so forth? We need to do our best and then surrender the outcomes to God, because whatever happens is good for me. This is the mantra Swami had given. I'll conclude with a story on surrender, which is again from Trai Vrindavan. I've narrated it earlier, but it's very important on how we should pray. And it's also symbolic of what kind of surrender we should have. So there was this village where there was a wedding, a grand wedding of one part of the village head. And he had made a lot of arrangements. And it was the skies were overcast, and it was very likely that there will be heavy showers. And he was praying fervently that there should be no rain, because daughter's wedding will get affected. At the other end of the village was this farmer who had worked very hard and sowed the seeds, and he was waiting for the rain so that he can have a bountiful harvest. So he was praying to God, please, there should be rain. So Swami portrayed this situation in Trai Vrindavan before the students, and then he asked, whose prayer should God accept, of the village head or of that farmer? So the students gave different answers. Some said, Swami, God should listen to the prayer of the village head because daughter's wedding is a rare occasion, and so it should not get affected. And then some others said, Swami, God should listen to the prayer of the farmer because it's a question of livelihood, existence. So then Swami listened to all of that and paused. He said, both of you are wrong. The real devotee will pray, oh God, you know what is in everybody's best interest. May thy will prevail. Because what you do will be good not only for me, it will be good for all humanity. I do not have that vision and wisdom. So let thy will prevail should be the prayer of every devotee. That is true surrender. That is true devotion. That's what I'd like to say.
Wonderful. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much. Going on to our second question. It is on tips on practical parenting. How to resolve what's happening in school and what we are teaching at home. Keep the child grounded in spiritual values, at the same time being able to integrate the environment which does not have or believe in the same values. And our kids seem to have dual values, one for home or Sai family and one dealing with external world. So how do we remain in harmony where thought, deed, and action are the same? This extrapolates to adults as well, as living in areas where Sai families or Sai schools are limited to weekend exposure. Our kids see themselves as outsiders and none of their peers have the same set of values.
Okay, so that's a fairly long question and a lot of things packaged into one. I think there is this misnomer often that for devotees, for all of us, things should be very smooth. And why? Because of course we are paying the interest of devotion to God, and with that interest, everything should be taken care of by God. But we forget the fact that all the great devotees have always had very tough lives, because a lotus always blossoms in the mud. A boat floats on water, which has the capacity to drown, but it has to float on the water if it wants to reach on the other side. It is the nature of the wood with which the boat is made, or the nature of the leaf or the petals with which the lotus is made, that helps them survive. And what is that nature? The lotus leaf does not let the drop of water to stay on it. You look at it, you take a lotus leaf and try to put water on that, it will never let that happen. Similarly, the boat also, the wood does not drown inside the water. What does the boatman do? A in a very focused way ensures that that water does not enter into the boat. It is the nature of both of these that helps them stay afloat. I think that's the same for true spiritual aspirants. They have to ensure, we all have to ensure that our inner core is strengthened despite the negativities or difficulties outside. Why overseas? In India too, the environment is not very conducive. Materialism has become rampant, and with more wealth comes more desires. With more desires come more accumulation. With more accumulation come more problems. And that is very evident even in India, and it's equal in the developed countries as well. So all sadhana has to be done to help us strengthen this inner core. And that's why the scriptures and Swami repeatedly place the examples before us of the great dichotomies that the Pandavas faced, or Mirabai faced, or Annamacharya faced, or Kabir Das faced, or Bhadrachalam Ramadas faced. Some of the foremost devotees of God, we cannot even have a fraction of their devotion, but still they had to go through so much, because that is the dichotomy that exists in the world, and that is why spiritual aspirants need to strengthen. Another aspect of values at home and outside, like the question kind of raised, spiritual values are universal. We need to understand that. Truth, right conduct, peace, love, non-violence, these are similar irrespective of any country or continent. So we need to appreciate their role and their importance over the apparent religious differences that we see outside. That is a first and very important thing. But for appreciating their importance and their context in these diverse situations, we need to understand their practice in all contexts. How can truth be practiced in all contexts? How can we train our children for having a right conduct, or being peaceful, or being loving? If we do not help them appreciate the context, they will subjectively interpret these values and practice them. And what is the solution for that? For that, we need to place before them the lives of great heroes and heroines of our scriptures, of our epics, and even of contemporary times, who were able to practice these values in very, very difficult situations, so that they will be able to appreciate the universality of these values and their practice. The value of truth, the value of non-violence, the value of dharma, what it was practiced in Mahabharata or Ramayana, or during the times of Jesus or Guru Nanak, and how it can be practiced now. While the context may have changed, but the core value or the importance or relevance of that has not changed. That should be a core part, not only of the SSC program, and a lot of stories across all religions should be told, so that children are able to appreciate the context, but also during the time they spend at home. Documentaries, movies, books on the lives of these great individuals and how they practiced lives despite all diversities and difficulties will be a great resource for children. These will be the values and stories that will be embedded in their memory, and that will come back to them when they're facing those difficulties. And the example of a Yudhishthira, or an example of an Abraham Lincoln, or of a Nelson Mandela, or of a Swami Vivekananda, or of an Abdul Kalam will come before their eyes and say that, yes, this is what these great people did. This is what I too can do. So while the context may be different, the content is the same. Thank you.
Sairam, I think we'll appreciate the practical tips you've given us. So you touched on supreme divinity. On following on that, what is moksha and obstacles in the moksha path? And can I get moksha just through working, abiding by spiritual principles, some of which you had mentioned in the talk, like doing everything in excellence and right intention?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just switching off to just take a sip of water.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
So, yeah, so the question is on moksha. I think it's the most misunderstood word, and it's often used as if we know what moksha is, and as if it's a destination which we can take a ticket for and then head to. And if I've got the right ticket, if I'm following the right path, I will reach the destination. First of all, we have to realize that moksha is not a destination. Moksha is not a place. Moksha is a state of mind. Swami has defined it in very simple words. Mohakshayam is moksham. Giving up of desires is moksham. I'm reading the Sutra Vahini, which is Swami's Bhashyam or commentary on the Brahma Sutras. And that Swami is very nicely explained. And I'm not quoting Swami, but I'm just giving the purport of what Swami said. We talk about liberation. We're talking about liberating man. Human beings want to liberate themselves. Why do they want to liberate themselves? That is because they are currently bound. Only when you are bound will you want to be liberated. Then the next question is, what are you bound by? You are bound by your own individual identity. I am so and so, as we just discussed. I am so and so. I'm a man. I'm a doctor. I'm a husband. I'm a son. I'm a grandson. So on and so forth. I'm an Indian. I'm a Canadian. All of these kind of identities. These are the identities, and all the aspirations and desires through these identities bind the individual to the world. So what does he have to do to get liberated from it? To get liberated from it, he has to realize that he isn't this distinct individual. This separate identity that he has created for himself in his mind is not what he is. Swami always used to say, "Idi puttina peru kaadu, idi pettina peru." Your birth name, this is not your birth name. You are not born with this name. You are not born as Preeti. You are not born as Kamala. These are names which have been given to you. These are the names which have been given to you. So this identity that you are Preeti, that you are Kamala, that you are Shashank has been given to you by this world. This is not your true identity. What is your true identity? Your true identity is that you are a drop of the same ocean, which has the same qualities as the ocean itself. The drop may be small, the ocean is huge, but there is a same essential quality which both have. And all the efforts that we are making are like the efforts that the raindrop makes to go back to the ocean, which is its source. So moksha isn't a destination. It is about changing the lens. The lens with which one sees oneself, the lens with which one sees one's relationships, the lens with which one sees one's relationship with God. This is the lens which is what needs to be changed. Swami often said, Yatha drishtihi tatha srishti. As is the vision, so is the creation. The problem is in your vision. If you have the wrong vision, the creation will seem the way it is. Swami said, if you wear the lenses or spectacles of God, if you wear the spectacles and lenses of love, you will see the whole world as being divine. So how does one change this lens? I'm giving the conclusion of it. There are two ways of changing this lens in this journey of moksha. One is the lens of jnana, or the other is the lens of prema. In the Bhagavad Gita, we talk, there is this Vishwavirata Swarupa Darshana. And in that it is said that Krishna gave Arjuna Divya Chakshu, or special vision. It was not a special spectacles, or there was some special lens added to his eye. There's so much symbolism in this. Basically, this Divya Chakshu means the vision of wisdom. What was that wisdom that Arjuna got because of Krishna's grace? That he was able to see that there is the same Krishna in Yudhishthira and the same Krishna in Duryodhana. There's the same Krishna in Bhishma and the same Krishna in Drona. There's the same Krishna in the elephant and the same Krishna in the horse. It is the same Krishna. Only the external forms are different. There is no difference internally. This is what is a realization of moksha. So how do we get there? We get there in three paths or three steps. I think through this, I'll cover a lot of ground because there may be a lot more questions, but I thought I'll cover a lot of ground with this. There are three problems with us basically. What blocks our journey to this so-called moksha? There are three things that the scriptures have said. One is mala, or dirt, the accumulated dirt which we have gathered over lifetimes. These are impressions in our subconscious gained over several lifetimes, because every action, every word leaves behind an impression. And all of those have been accumulated. And there are usually more bad than good as we see our own life. So that is called mala, or dirt. Second is vikshepa, or unsteadiness. It is like the image that we see of ourselves in the mirror, which is shaking. We don't see ourselves clearly. Our image is shaking. That comes because of the wavering nature of the mind. Our mind is not steady. It is all the time here and there. Even if we are sitting with our eyes closed, Swami always used to say, oh, all of you keep saying you're doing meditation, meditation. But what meditation are you doing? You're sitting in your puja room, but your mind is in the market, your mind is in the office, your mind is in the grocer store. Where is the meditation happening? So this is because of vikshepa. It is because of this unsteadiness nature of the mind. And the third problem which blocks moksha is avarana, or a covering kind of a thing. You can look at it as a covering on the mirror, or a huge thick layer of dust on the mirror, or better still, a covering on a pot which has 9 holes. If as a pot has 9 holes and there is a light inside, if you are covering that whole thing with a thick cloth, the light will be seen, but very dim light. The shine will not be seen. That is called avarana. So what do we do? These 3 have to be given up in order to reach moksha. So the first is chitta shuddhi. We need to have purity. And for that, the path of karma, or all actions that we do, are meant to help us get that purity. Chittasya shuddhaye karma, it is said in the Viveka Chudamani. Second, so that will help us remove all the mala or dirt. It's not easy, but that is the purpose for all our sadhana that we do. It is to cleanse these impressions. If these impressions are not getting cleansed, we are not cleaning the dirt. We are only apparently acting as if we are doing some kind of sadhana. The next is ekagrata. We need to have concentration. So the upasana marga, which is given in the Vedas, helps us achieve this concentration. That concentration, either on the nirguna Brahma or saguna Brahma, which is God with form, with attribute, without attribute, is going to help us overcome this vikshepa, or the sense of unsteadiness. This whole focus on concentrating on a God with form or without form is to help us be focused. When we have chitta shuddhi, when we have ekagrata, then we will get what is called jnana siddhi, or realization that we are not different. For that, there are 2 paths. What are the 2 paths? One is the path of jnana, as I said. The other path is of prema. So what is the path of jnana? Soham, soham, soham. Some used to say, if you are bound with a chain, how will you come out of it? One way is to break it. You're bound with this chain of body identity that I am this body. So you keep saying soham, soham, soham. Through chitta shuddhi and ekagrata, you are then concentrating on yourself as being one with God. I am that, I am that, I am that. You expand yourself, you expand yourself, you expand yourself, and that chain breaks. And you are no longer bound by this chain and you become free. Or the other option is prema. Dasoham, dasoham, dasoham. I am the servant of God. I am the servant of God. I am nothing. I am absolutely infinitesimal. You become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and you escape from the holes which are there in the chain. And again, you are free. Both of these are pathways to moksha. So this is an entire roadmap which will give a lot of clarity. Is all based on what Swami has said, what is there in the scriptures and Vedanta. I hope this will make it very clear. And also a very important point with respect to moksha, desire is the greatest obstacle. Swami used to give the example of a rice. If a rice is sown with the husk, it will germinate. But if you remove the husk and sow the rice, it will not germinate. That husk is desire. If we are dying with a lot of unfinished desires, we will be born because we have to fulfill all those desires. But in this lifetime, if we start realizing that we are not this body, all of this is not with respect to our body, we are an embodiment of divinity, we are actually divinity, and we don't have desires, we start looking at things as a witness, then we will not have that husk at the time of death. Then what happens? Punarjanmana vidyate. We are not born again. That is moksha. Thank you.
Excellent explanation, and thank you for the blueprint, giving us the blueprint.
Thank you.
Yeah. For our next question, I think we had that, is doing self-appraisal spiritual? And is it part of the spiritual process, or is it a conflict in the path? And also, how do you determine where you are in the spiritual ladder?
Yeah, I think this is a very important question. I think I answered it partially through the self-audit example that I shared. But I'll share a story here, which is of my own classmate. He had shared it with us when he was in MBA, but he was earlier a part of the Hyderabad youth group. And they used to be doing a lot of rural service. And in the rural service program, they used to be going to the villages and doing bal vikas and singing bhajans and having some livelihood programs and village cleaning and so many activities. And Swami used to be very happy because Swami wanted the youth always to be encouraged to be constantly engaged in service, not because you are going to do something good to society. Yes, that is an incidental outcome. The more important outcome is that you are utilizing your energies, time, and focus towards a noble endeavor. And hence the monkey mind will not take you to unnecessary and negative situations. So Swami used to give them interviews, and in the interviews, they used to tell Swami, we did this, we did that, and Swami would patiently listen. And after all of that, Swami used to praise them, oh, very good, very happy, you have done a great job, etc. And then Swami would say, okay, all this is fine. Now tell me, after doing this service, has your anger reduced? Has your jealousy gone down? Has your patience improved? Has your level of tolerance gone up? If all that has happened, then the purpose for which you are doing this seva has been achieved. If that has not happened, then this seva is incomplete in its purpose or in achievement of its purpose. So when we talk about self-audit or trying to evaluate where we are in the spiritual ladder, this is the biggest evaluation. It is not about where we are crying with, of course, I gave the example of Ramakrishna, but there are many people who will attempt to cry to show their devotion. That is not what it is. In fact, that happened after Ramakrishna left, a lot of people started faking samadhi. That is faking that, oh, they are in some high emotional this thing. So Vivekananda had actually stopped any such things in the gatherings of the Ramakrishna Math and Mission. But what is important in this case is not that. What is important in this case is where we are in our own flaws and how much have we been able to overcome them. That is and for that Swami had used the word constant integrated awareness. In thought, word, and deed, we have to be conscious about it. That's why Swami had always said, the formula you have to follow for spiritual success is ABC. Always be careful. And then eventually, I believe he only added it, DEFG. Don't ever forget God. So ABCDEFG of life is always be careful. Don't ever forget God. Now, while this is humorous and very catchy, but what does this mean? Always be careful. Careful of whom? Your own mind and your tendencies of taking you here and there. So you have to be careful because the mind will take you wherever it wants you. Like it is like a chariot where if the reins are not given in the hands of God or intellect, it will wreak havoc. So don't ever forget God. What does that mean? God, not as in a tangible God, but the intellect, the buddhi, the refined wisdom which is placed in you should be used as the filter between the mind and the senses. So everything that the mind wants you to do, you have to immediately use the filter of the buddhi or intellect and check whether this is good or bad, whether this is right or wrong, whether this is temporary or permanent. This should become an embedded code in the way we live, that the buddhi or intellect should be the deciding factor whether what we are going to say or do is correct or not as per the 4 parameters I mentioned. If that becomes our habit, then every action, every word emanating from our system will be in alignment with the higher purpose. And that is when we would have made true progress in our spiritual journey. Thank you.
Excellent explanation. Thank you. In the interest of time, we'll actually take a last question from the YouTube channel.
Right.
Yeah. So things that we do as resolute duty, is that considered as devotion, or is duty devoid of emotion? In that sense, where does duty and devotion meet? In other words, is duty and devotion exclusive?
So Swami has given the answer to that. He used to say, duty without love is deplorable. Duty with love is desirable. Love without duty is divine. I think that captures the essence of this question, that duty without love is deplorable. So definitely all the duties that we do, all the relationships, paid, unpaid roles in this world, without love, if it is done, it is deplorable, because even in your office, if you are going to be a man with all these vices and not have any iota of love in what you're doing, you're not going to be a great leader. Some of the finest corporate leaders have been the ones who have genuine love for humanity. I'm reminded of J.R.D. Tata, who was the only one conferred the Bharat Ratna in India and who served as the chairman of Tata Group for 50 years. He always looked at the larger good of the society. In fact, when he was conferred the Bharat Ratna, in his Thanksgiving speech, he said, one of the economic thinkers have predicted that India will be a superpower in the 21st century. Then he said, I don't want India to be a superpower. I want India to be a happy country. So that is what love is all about. You want others to be happy. So duty without love is deplorable. That kind of duty we should not do. Duty with love is desirable. All the duty that we do towards everybody, it should be with love. That is desirable. Otherwise, even that has no taste. Finally, love without duty is divine. We should have unconditional love towards everybody, whether it is our duty or not, because that is our nature. That is what we are. Swami used to say, who are we? Prema Swarupa Lara. You are an embodiment of love. Are we able to identify ourselves with that love? In one of the discourses, I remember Swami had said, we have this Satyasai, Sri Satyasai Answers series, where the All India organization is putting out an excerpt from Swami's discourse every Thursday. In one of the discourses where Swami is explaining love, Swami explained all that. And then he said, sages called that love Atma, which means that all that Swami has been talking about love, is actually using it as a synonym for Atma or God. So actually when Swami says embodiments of love, he's actually calling us embodiments of divinity. So when we say love without duty is divine, in everything, when we have love as our true nature and not bind it or kind of slice it to a particular duty where we are doing, then we are truly heading towards divinity. Now, the counter question to that will come is, oh, but how can we love people who are having all these kind of negative tendencies? Okay, don't love them, but don't hate them also. Adveshta Sarva Bhutanam. In the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is giving the characteristics of a good devotee, this is the first characteristic. A good devotee does not hate anybody because there is the same divinity in everybody. However, the vices of that individual are the vrittis or his tendencies gathered over several lifetimes. So what do? Keep a distance. Do not have snakes in your backyard. Those snakes are also divine. You don't need to have them in the backyard. So keep a distance from people whom you cannot get along with, but don't hate them. That is the way we can gradually transform our love from a small group to a larger group to all humanity. It's a gradual process. And there's also necessity to understand that what we call as happiness, and we trivialize it. Many times we say, oh, I'm being happy with this, and gradually all of that will become true bliss. And otherwise someone, oh, I had great darshan, I was in bliss. Oh, I had a great meal, I was in bliss. What is this bliss? What is this happiness? That happiness, which is determined by external duties, you were asking about duties, external duties, which I get with respect to my fulfilling of my duties or my acquiring land or bungalow or food or clothes or whatever, all of that is dependent on an external stimulus. So when that gets satisfied, we are happy. What is true happiness? Swami said, true happiness is union with God. That happiness which does not require an external stimulus to make us happy, but which is our genuine nature, which is in union with God within, that is truly sustainable. I'll conclude with the quantification given in the Anandavalli of the Taittiriya Upanishad. In that, the happiness is quantified. Human happiness with all the wealth and well-being and family, etc., if it is quantified as one unit, this I'm not saying, this is given in the Taittiriya Upanishad, in the Anandavalli. If that is quantified as one unit, then Brahmananda, or the bliss of the divine that we are talking about, or the true happiness or the supreme happiness that we are talking about, is quantified as 100 crore times of that single unit, which is 1 followed by 16 zeros. That is the capability, that is the destination, that is the potency, the power, and the destiny which all of us have. We are happy with this one alone. We are forgetting that we are capable of adding 16 zeros to that and reaching that. That's our destiny. Shunvantu Vishve Amritasya Putraha, as the Shvetashvatar Upanishad said. Listen, O children of immortality, thy is the divine destiny. So live for God, make that as your path to true devotion, and give your life true fulfillment. With that, I'll conclude. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, thank you so much. I will hand it over now to Brother Shiva.
My humble pranams to our dearest Bhagavan, Dr. Shashank. Please accept our sincere appreciation for the outstanding talk this morning on your experiences with our dear Bhagavan. Your years of experience, your depth of understanding of Bhagavan's teachings, and your ability to present the subject in such simple and beautiful ways has certainly made this to be one of the most memorable devotional talks that we've had. I personally appreciated the importance that you've given to Parabhakti and living for Bhagavan. We'll definitely take away with us the importance of being an instrument to our dearest Swami, that he has already willed. I love that example, the fact that he's already willed all of this, but it's up to us on the type of instruments that we want to be to serve in his mission. You're always welcome to Canada and certainly in person in the future. I hope with Swami's grace that you continue to share his love with all of his devotees. Thank you so very much. Om Sri Sai Ram.
Yeah, my most humble pranams at Thai Lotus feet. Thank you so much, Brother Shiva. I, on behalf of the devotional team, SSIO Canada and Sai Fraternity out of Canada here together, and my own on behalf of myself, extend a heartfelt word of thanks to Brother Shashank Shah for gracing your wisdom and sharing us your experience today. I would like to express our sincere gratitude to none other than our dearest Divine Master for giving us an excellent opportunity for us to listen to Brother Shashank. The Swami is the Karta, Karma, and Kriya, and we all are the instruments in his hands. Swami, thank you so much for your abundant grace on all of us, for your for all your blessings to us. My job became easy, like with Brother Shiva's thanking note. But I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Brother Shashank for his explanation of the Swardha Bhakti, Samanya Bhakti, and Parardha Bhakti. I personally is like very delightful to understand the true devotion, the types of devotion, and then what is living for God and what is living for God is a true devotion. So thank you so much. And on a lighter note, I was thinking it's like every I think I'm deliberately it's like following the true devotion. Just think every action we do is like we question whether will it please my wife or not. But now I updated my version. I'll start questioning, saying, will it please my Lord and also please my wife? So, but thanks again, Brother Shashank, for joining us today. It's like we all enjoyed your amazing talk. Thank you so much. So, and none of our programs are complete without the SSC kids, and I really appreciate their beautiful rendition of opening prayers and especially the Avatar Eyes song. I really enjoyed that. Thank you. And I'm also like very grateful today for Sister Preeti and Brother Shiva joining us on this meeting and helping us with all the formalities, background support for a successful program today. Thank you so much for that. And I also want to mention about our devotional coordinators across Canada, it's like very active instruments of Swami. And my sincere thanks to them for all the coordination, communication with devotees across Canada. And how can we forget our active Sai devotees and our audience today, joining us across the locations, your enthusiasm, your inquiry, and then the questions keep us the program alive. And thank you so much. And I also want to thank Brother Nitin and Aparna for the logistics regarding and the technical support. I always enjoy working with you for all the Swami's programs. Thanks for that. Lastly, I just wanted to, I'm very fortunate to be part of the National Devotional Team, and may Swami immensely bless for all your efforts, Sister Kamala and Brother Raman. And I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement with their willingness to extend beyond their comfort zones. Once again, I wanted to state that we all are very grateful to Swami. And thank you so much, Brother Shashank, for joining. We thank you for being with us this evening. It's been a great pleasure. So now we'll just conclude the program with a prayer and arti. And thank you so much. Om Shri Sai Ram.
I see your face in every sunrise, your love poured out for me, displayed to give you glory. I hear your voice when winds surround me, when trees and ramparts bow, swaying for your glory. All creation's pointing to you, so how could I ignore your love? 'Cause you're the God of life, the God of all. You are beautiful. I surrender all, even in the night. When darkness falls, I can rest assured your light will come. I hear you roaring like a lion when thunder fills the sky. Can anybody hear him? The God of wonders living in me. He stirs my heart to sin. How could I keep it in me? All creation's pointing to you, so how could I ignore your love? Your love. You're the God of life, the God of all. You are beautiful. I surrender all, even in the night. When darkness falls, I can rest assured your light will come. You're the God of life, the God of all. You are beautiful. I surrender all, even in the night. When darkness falls, I can rest assured your light will come. So the God of life, the God of all, you are beautiful. I surrender all, even in the night. When darkness falls, I can rest assured your light will come.
सद्गमया तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमया मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमया।
जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक प्रतिमनेश्वर ओम जय जगदीश हरे शशि भजना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलटिका आश्रित कल्पलटिका आपदान्धवा ओम जय जगदीश हरे मात पिता गुरुदैवं मरियन्तयु नीवे स्वामी मरियन्तयु नीवे नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नाद ब्रह्म जगन्नाथ नागेन्द्राशयन ओम जय जगदीश हरे ओंकार रूप ओजस्वी साई महादेवा सत्य साई महादेवा मंगल आरती अंधको मंगल आरती अंधको मंदर गिरिधारी ओम जय जगदीश हरे नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय सद्गुरुदेवा नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण 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 ओम नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम सत्य नारायण नारायण ओम जय जय सद्गुरुदेवा शांति शांति शांति।
जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।
समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु शांति शांति शांति।
Okay, with this, we'll conclude the program today. Thank you so much for joining us today.